কত দিনে,
মিলন হবে কত দিনে,
আমার মনের মানুষের সনে,
আমার মনের মানুষের সনে মিলন হবে কত দিনে, মিলন হবে কত দিনে, আমার মনের মানুষের সনে, আমার মনের মানুষের সনে। ওতা হয় না কপাল গুনে, ওতা হয় না কপাল গুনে, আমার মনের মানুষের সনে, আমার মনের মানুষের সনে। মেঘের ভিতর মেঘে যাবো, লোকালে হাওয়ায় অন্যের জল, কালারে হারায় কালারে হারায় হলুক ফিরে দর্পণে, থাকে না লোক যারো ভাই, সকল সরল থাকে না লোক যারো ভাই। লালন ফকির ভেবে বলে সহায়, লালন ফকির ভেবে বলে সহায়। তোর বাড়িতে দিতে তোর বাড়িতে দিতে ওরে দুই ছেলে আর এক মেয়ে, তোর বাড়িতে দিতে দুই ছেলে আর এক মেয়ে, রসিক সোজা ভাই রে দুলা, বসে আছো তারা সতী ছিল
গেরো গা গেরো খেপায়া হাপুর হুপুর ডুব পারিলে ডুব পারিলে পূজা করছো মজা যাবে পূজা কার্তিকের উলানের গানে গেলে গানের খাবা গেলে গানের খাবায়া আপুর উপরি ডুব পারিলে
এবার মজা যাবে বোঝা এবার মজা যাবে বোঝা কার্তিকের উলানের গানে
গেলে গানের খাবায়া গেলে গানের খাবায়া
অপুর ডুব পারিলে এবার মজা যাবে বোঝা
এবার মজা যাবে বোঝা
কার্তিকের উলানের গানে
জ্বালায় টাকা তাবিজ বাজবি গলায় বুঝবি তখন কবের জ্বালায় টাকা তাবিজ বাজবি গলায় তখন কি আর হবে ভালাই
তখন কি আর হবে ভালাই
তখন কি আর হবে ভালাই মস্তকের জল শুষ্ক হলে গেলে গানের খাবা গেলে গানের খাবা গানের খাবায়া আপুর উপরে ডুব পারিলে বলছো মজা যাবে বোঝা এবার মজা যাবে বোঝা
কার্তিকের উলানের গানে
গেলে গানের খাবায়া গেলে গানের খাবায়া
আমি পড়েছি
My name is Sudipto Chatterjee, and I was born in Kolkata in 1964 and was raised here. Went to school, born in a family of educators, because my father was a professor, my mother was a school teacher, and my sisters eventually went into the academics as well. So it was sort of a fait accompli situation for me, where it was expected that I would go into academics as well. And I initially, as a child, I wasn't a very good student in school at all. But then, as I grew up, I developed a taste for literature. I lost my father very early, but he left behind a lot of books in his entire library, and probably something in the DNA's kicked off, and I ended up studying English literature at St. Xavier's College while also doing theatre, because my mother had a children's theatre group, and I was a performer in that group since the age of 3 or 4, so very early entry into performance, and I loved it. And then when I was in my early teens, probably even 10 or 11, I met this amazing man called Ajitesh Banerjee, who was a leading theatre director in Kolkata at that time, and lived really close by, very close to where I was growing up. So he sort of became the father figure in my life. And it's through him that I learned that theatre is serious business. It wasn't just entertainment, it wasn't just singing and dancing, but it was a lifetime practice. But at the same time, I was also getting an academic orientation, especially once I entered college. By the time I went to college, I had two parallel interests. One was to, of course, educate myself, academically train myself, and I enjoyed English literature a lot. I enjoyed literature. I started writing as well. But then I was equally interested in performing. So I just grew up doing both. And then, it never occurred to me that there were two different things. It was just two sides of the same coin. And then, as I grew up, I finished my BA. I was doing theatre in Kolkata. I started an MA program in English, enrolled myself in Jadavpur University. But then at some point I realized that I wasn't getting anywhere, that I wasn't really interested in English literature anymore. I wanted to do drama, study performance, perform and study performance. So those were my two goals. And neither of these two goals were being met satisfactorily in Kolkata. So at this point of time, when I was trying to think what I should do, opportunity came knocking, and I was invited on a month-long playwrights conference, young playwrights conference to the US. And then one thing led to another. I met Richard Schechner, and then somehow within the next 6 months found myself in New York studying performance studies, MA first in New York under Richard Schechner's supervision, and then eventually MA led to PhD, and it was a period of struggle. I was very poor in New York, third world poverty, experienced third world kind of poverty in the world's richest country at that time. And then gradually struggled hard, but then finally got my PhD, started teaching performance studies, first at Tufts University in Boston, and then I moved to University of California, Berkeley, where I was also teaching performance studies. And then came a point after 17 years in the US, I felt that I didn't want to stay in the USA any longer. George W. Bush had come into power and wasn't liking staying in New York. I decided to move to England. While I was in England, I didn't particularly enjoy staying in England either. It was the good thing. One of the good things was that British television is fantastic and British theatre is great, but then not much else. And I reconnected with cricket, of course, which is extraneous to the point. And then I got a chance to go to Berlin at the Freie Universität on a fellowship. In the meantime, while in Berkeley, I had launched this project called Man of the Heart, which was on the life and times of Lalun Shah, Lalun Phokir, the Sufi Baul Phokir figure, songmaker, saint songmaker. And that was where practice and research had come together in a big way. But before that also, in everything that I did, I always tried to include a research component. That how could you, at that point I was really obsessed about how one could deploy discursive language, the language of discourse, as dialogue. Because discourse, the best discourse in the world, be it the Upanishads or be it the Socratic dialogues, it's always been dialogic. And our imagination is dialogic, as Mikhail Bakhtin has argued. And I was always on the threshold. We were talking about being in between and being interstitial, neither here nor there, in a twilight nether zone of neither here nor now, but in a location that wouldn't even be recognized as a location, where you were between practice and theory. So neither here nor there, but then that sort of became my habitation. I can't imagine a more advantageous place, because I really enjoy writing about performance, writing about, also I'm semi-anthropologically trained through performance studies, through studying Victor Turner and Clifford Geertz and Levi Strauss. But at the same time, I'm a performance maker. I perform myself, and it's been my long-time desire to make the two meet. So Man of the Heart sort of epitomizes that, where there is no story being told as such, there's no character being played as such. The narrative is broken and deconstructed, and it's reconstructed only in the head of the audience. We don't try to feed it to the audience, and it's as it were, the fragments add up to more than the total. So that's how I've been working, and that's how I've continued to work. That's how I situate myself, interstitially. And when I do theatre, I do acting, singing, directing, writing, makeup, all sorts of things. And when I write poetry, I write academic prose, I write Bengali prose, I write between two languages, English and Bangla. So in every respect, I find myself being an in-between person. And initially I would explain it and try to justify it to people, but now I don't. Because people have a hard enough time trying to understand, and trying to explain to people, I think, only exposes one's insecurities. I'm not insecure about who I am any longer. So I don't stop to explain. I just do what I do, say what I have to say. And usually when I get the chance to communicate where I stand, it gets communicated. Like I told you after the first day, you come to the lecture, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And if you are a performance studies person, you know that performance studies is essentially an interdisciplinary discipline. In fact, Barbara Kirschenblatt-Gimlet has argued that performance studies is not really a discipline, because if you call it a discipline, you'll have to punish. In the Foucauldian sense, that's a joke. But that aside, performance studies is a critique of the notion of discipline. So it's more like a disciplinary field where several cross currents are intersecting with each other. So performance studies can be seen at the nexus of post-colonial studies, semiotics, linguistics, anthropology, sociology, cultural studies, feminism, Marxism, what have you. I mean, a whole range of disciplines. So if that is what it is, if the nature of the beast is such, then I think all performance studies people should have a taste of performance making as well. Because the other binary that performance studies tries to dislodge is the binarist notion of the archive and the repertoire. It questions and troubles and problematizes the notion of the historical document-based archive as being inalienable and unchallengeable. But as Pierre Nora had issued a caveat that you have the memoir, the lieu and the milieu.
Lieu de mémoire. Lieu de mémoire. Places of memory.
Places of memory, lieu de mémoire. What was the other one? I forget. But Diana Taylor has sort of pushed that forward and along with some other scholars as well, have suggested that there are two repositories basically where the performance memory can be retained. One is the archive, and the other is the body, the repertoire of the body. The body remembers things in a non-textual way. The questioning of the text and the textual, trying to push beyond text, even when you're operating within text, even if you're writing a book. Oftentimes I find myself subverting the idea of writing, even while writing. So it's almost a paradox. Why almost? It is a paradox. But it's sort of like Benjamin's predictions all coming true. What happens to the work of art in an age of mechanical reproduction, where the text takes over per se. The text becomes the surrogate site of performance. So instead of just saying text is a bad thing, text needs to be thrown out the window, I would suggest the way out probably is to redefine text itself. And in this regard, again, I come back to Man of the Heart, where we present about Lalun Pukir, who doesn't write, and yet he's a song maker, he's a liedermacher. And when he's doing that, he is trying to create a different sense of text, which is spoken, heard, memorized mnemonically because of the versification, the way it's structured and its cadences and rhythms, and then transmitted on through repetition from one generation of followers to the next, to the next, to the next. And so it moves both vertically as well as horizontally. So it's almost what Richard Schechner says is horizontal depth. So it's like a rhizome. It's underneath, it's a root that goes deep, but at the same time it also spreads. So how do you negotiate that sort of an archive? Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the Kenyan author and philosopher and writer, he proposes the idea of orature, oral literature as orality, oral narratives as literature, which does not fit in necessarily with the written paradigm, but is a cultural text nonetheless, that you cannot ignore simply because it's not written. So how do we operate within that? I mean, this is where I guess notions of thick description come back alive. That can the anthropologist really be a fly on the wall and watch? Can the native informant be the only source of information? Do we need to separate between bad information and good information? Do we need to question the relationship between the emek and the etek? These are the big questions in cultural anthropology, become valid in performance anthropology as well. And these are some of the things that I'm interested in. I mean, right now the work on Lalun Pukir is still on the trot. It's been going on for the last 11 years. And now I think it's time for me to consolidate all that experience, both the research behind it and then the performance history. 11 years is not a short time. It's quite a protracted period. It's more than a decade. So take all of that into stock and see where we are standing. So now I'm working on the book issue of how do I manage my time in order to fit both in, because they both demand a lot of time and attention and discipline and hard work. So when it comes to that, I have to divide myself up. That when I'm doing a production, I don't do any writing at all. I'm completely immersed in that production, and that's what I do. Then when I'm done with it, I start writing again. So
you divide in time.
Exactly.
At least,
I have to color code my weeks and my years and my months. This is my month of writing. In fact, believe it or not, I had that experience in 2008, and then I recorded that entire conversation, and I've yet to hear it. I hate to even think about it. I haven't even played it back to listen. I've done it with every other recording that I have except that one. I'm still not distant enough to digest it, to understand it, to
Can you
process it.
tell me the story?
What happened was, Kushtia is a place of fakirs, lots of fakirs. But then there are some fakirs, what I call them. That they are fake fakirs, so fakirs. But this man was not known as a fakir. He was the guru of several leading bowels practitioners, fakirs in that area. So a friend of mine, asked me to go visit him, and I did. And what happened was, initially he was very open and very respectful. But then I gradually realized that he did not like my questions. He just wanted to have his monologue, and that was it. But then a monologue was not what I wanted. I wanted a dialogue. And I started asking him questions, probing questions. And then
How old was he?
he was in his late 70s or early 80s probably, which is not very old for a fakir. They lived to be centurions at times, a number of them in my experience. So it just got dirty. Then in the afternoon during lunch, I just saw how much he ate. I saw before his lunch how his disciples came and massaged him with oil and bathed him and this and that, which I found very offensive as a way of living. But I guess I didn't want to make judgments. And then I realized that basically he wanted money from me. That for the whole thing, that I'd have to pay him something, and then, But I was not in a position to do that. I had a fellowship that covered my travel costs and living expenses. There was no way in which I could justify this. And I didn't have that. I didn't have that extra kind of money lying around. So I told him quite categorically that no, I couldn't do that. Now once that was out in the open, he wanted to have nothing to do with me. And basically he cursed me badly.
He could do it. He had this power.
Yeah. And and then asked me to leave. And of course I left. I didn't talk back. I didn't curse him back. Because that was not part of my education. I wouldn't do that to anybody. And that was probably one of my worst experiences. But why did you want to know about a bad experience, if I may ask you?
Because the only worst experience make you real observer. So the bad, I mean, you learn Tantra, then you know why worst experience is important.
Oh, okay, from that point of view.
It's a part of education.
Of course. But that's where subjectivity steps in, because, if I were to go to a completely different culture, a completely different country, where I did not only was I different in terms of language and culture, but also racial features, that sort of works as an interesting puts an objective distance between the subject and the anthropologist. However, in the case of a West Bengali person going to Bangladesh and working there, it's a very, very odd situation, because on the one hand, you're part of the same cultural world, in the sense the language kind of connects you. And then you are part of the very, very traumatic history of the partition, of relationship between Hindus and Muslims, and the history of it, the current history, the fact that you're speaking Bengali, you're eating the same food, you're experiencing the same weather conditions, and yet you have had to get a visa stamped in your passport. Those kinds of things do rock you, do trouble you, and I get very troubled by that. Because familiarly speaking, my mother is from Bangladesh, my mother was from Dhaka.
What is your name? Your mother name?
Sudipto Chatterjee. She was born in Dhaka and raised there, and then had to come here. And my father was born here, on the Indian side. So I find myself torn between my two ancestries. All of these things, come into play when you're trying to work as an anthropologist. I had an interesting encounter once at a conference where it was a conference about Tagore and vowels, Rabindranath Tagore and vowels and their relationship. And I wanted to speak, everybody was speaking on how Tagore was influenced by the vowel philosophy, how Tagore's music was inflected by that, how Tagore's poetry was inflected by that, how vowel characters show up in his plays, in his novels, and what was Tagore's acceptance of it, embracing of it, and what was his rejection of the vowels. So all of this goes on. But one thing that goes amiss in all of this discussion is that, okay, this is what Tagore thought of the vowels. What did the vowels think of Tagore? This is something that nobody really delves into. And when I was in Kushtia, I tried to delve into that. I would ask various Pukis, particularly the old ones, the centurion ones, that do they remember Tagore? And two that I met actually remembered Tagore. They were children then. They were young, really young. So one was in his late teens when he met Tagore, so he had memories. And then I started to look at photos from the Shantiniketan archives of Tagore during his days in Kushtia. He spent 28 years over there. It's not just 4 or 5 years or a few months. It's 28 years. That's almost 3 decades. And so when I did that, at one point I played to the audience a sound bite of a 107-year-old Pukir talking about how Lalun Pukir was brought to Calcutta once by Tagore, and how Tagore tried to tempt him by putting him in a room with 6 beautiful women who were trying to tempt him and entice him, and how Tagore left them in one room and went away. Then suddenly, a few minutes later, one of the girls went rushing to Tagore and said, "Well, come back, you've left a dead man with us." So he comes back and finds Lalun lying there dead, not breathing, nothing. But the moment Tagore goes and touches him, he sits up, comes back to life. So,
but it's a legend.
Huh?
It's a legend.
It's a legend.
Tagore never met Lalun.
That's what history tells us, that Tagore never met Lalun. Or even if we did, there is no eyewitness account of it. And Tagore doesn't mention it anywhere either. So we have no concrete proof. But he certainly knew about Lalun, there's no doubt about that. It's become mythic now. And my point is that you can't decide either way. So what you can't decide on, what's the point in trying to decide? That's something that we just don't know. Accept the fact that you don't know. That's my point. However, this was a story that this man was telling me. So I presented the story at the conference. I played that sound bite, and I said, even if this is a lie, this is a story, this is made up, behind every lie there's a truth. There's a truth that you want to hide. There's a truth that you cannot speak through factual accounts. Therefore, you create a myth, you create a legend, you create a lore around it, and you speak about that anxiety, that trauma, whatever, through that constructed. So the lore or the lie collapse, and it turns into a defense mechanism. So my question was, defense against what? What were they defending? What were they worried about? Now, an anthropologist over there who still believes in structuralism, structural anthropology, very senior guy, he started during lunch, he took me aside and started really scolding me for being a bad anthropologist, where I had not made a distinction between a good informant and a bad informant, and how an anthropologist must know what to use and what not to use. And I found myself arguing back, saying that how can you say that? Because you you are a subject of the field as much the field as is your subject. You cannot pre-decide what you're going to find. Of course you have to have some ideas, otherwise you wouldn't be able to look. But then you need to be open to being surprised, to being told by the field as to what you should do as an anthropologist. Your job is to collect the information, to observe, to experience it, and then let that experience speak through you. And performance allows you that, you see. When you're talking about an oral tradition, what I have found is by performance can become an index of the archival research. It can point in various directions. How? Because I'm using both the archive and the repertoire. When I'm talking about a song, I'm not just talking about it by writing an analysis of the song, but I'm actually singing it back in my own way. And I don't try to imitate the vowels. I sing in my own way. I don't try to sing as if I were a vowel and trying to sing it in their style. I try to sing it in my own way. And the whole point of that is that I cannot, it's a concomitant denial and acceptance of the fact that I am different. That I'm different. In other words, it's an acknowledgement of my subjectivity, that the anthropologist is not outside the frame of the camera. I'm very much there. And I try to process the information that I gather not just by jotting notes, but also performing it back in my own way, and thereby creating a conversation, creating a separate plane of articulation that is beyond text.
Then the question of reciprocity is there. So how they allow you to stay with them? What is the condition?
What has happened over the years, because I started going to Kushtia in 1997, that's been 20 years now. In all my time there, I've gone back several times. I was there last July. I try to go back every year. And in this whole period of time, I've made friends, I've met Pokis. And now, in the last 2 years, I've noticed is they don't treat me as an outsider any longer in many ways. And they will talk to me about things knowing that I know a bit about this. I'm not just going, wow, yeah.
But then the question is the same as with Rabindranath. What they think about you?
I don't know.
How you perceive it? What kind of function you play for them? Who are you for them?
I'm a bhakto. That's what they call me. That I'm if not a follower of Shaiji, I'm certainly someone who is very sympathetic and who's very interested in Shaiji, in Lalun. And I know a bit. I'm not trying to launch a musical career with that. I'm not trying to make business, or I'm trying to, earn millions.
You are not a patron.
I'm not a patron.
But still you patronize one of them.
I don't patronize him. He earns it. He comes and performs. So he gets paid for his performance.
It's a different thing.
It's a different thing. I don't just, do philanthropic work with Nojrul. When I was in Berlin, the Haus der Kultur und der Welt, they wanted a Baul performance and they approached me. And I asked them, these musicians need to come. And they paid for their expenses, their airfare, and this and that. So they came, they were paid, and it was distributed equitably. And Nojrul went back with the euros in his pocket. And same when he comes to India, same if he goes anywhere. We have taken him to Bangalore as well, to Delhi, various places. We were invited to Pakistan once, and I declined that trip because they wouldn't take Nazrul. They would give a visa to the Indians but not to the Bangladeshis and Indians together. So I said, well, then the tour won't happen because he's part of the team. So I don't patronize Nojrul at all. Patronize him, what do you call that patronizing? Letting him stay in my house as a guest? Is that patronization? Or
I don't know.
Or, share the food that I eat with him.
I don't know. The whole idea of a patron is changed. Sometimes it was a feudal order. That was one thing. But
Yeah.
now the patrons became Sangeet Natak Academy. Now it's a patron or some international, I don't know, festival. ICCR is a patron.
So
somehow
I don't have money from anybody. I don't have money from Sangeet Natak Academy. I don't have money from ICCR.
No, yes.
And when I go to Bangladesh, Nazrul arranges for my living, and he doesn't
You're
charge
friends.
me. I
You're
don't
like
charge
friends.
him.
You're just like
We
friends.
become like friends.
It's a different thing.
It's a different thing.
It's a different thing. Yeah.
It's a different thing. So from the very point that I started my research, I was never in a position to be a patron. I had never had money, so that was never an issue. Usually who has more money is what decides. Like I had more money than they did in terms of I would smoke cigarettes, they would smoke bidis, but then
That much.
then they would smoke cigarettes from me, I would smoke bidis from them, or when we smoked something else, it was shared. That time, that is different. So that's how it goes,
Yeah, that is
But at the same time,
adventures. So you
It's-
went on your own adventures.
yeah. I want to continue that.
Tell me please about your religion, about your
I
faith.
don't have one.
How was you raised up? So what about your
I was
parents?
raised in a communist family, and as an atheist. I mean, nobody in our house believed in organized religion as such. My mother had a spiritual bent of mind, but she was detached. She wasn't religious in any sense.
But Kalighat is there in the city. You can't avoid it.
yeah,
you
but
can't
I
avoid the
think
city of
I've been
joy.
to Kalighat only once in my entire
In your life?
In my entire life,
For what?
I've just been there once.
For what?
That too, when I got interested in Tantra, when I wanted to, explore it as a historical site, not as I'm not interested in organized religion at all. I'm an atheist who is sympathetic to Lalun, who does not. Lalun is not an atheist, but he also believed in the fact that the human being is the God. If there is a God, it's in the human being. So, if you believe in that sort of deep humanism, then you can be an atheist and be that at the same time. So, philosophically, I'm spiritual, but demographically, denominationally, I have no religion. But I do have a Hindu Brahmin name which I cannot avoid. It wasn't my choice.
Yes, but I'm just asking about your spirituality. So not about the organized religion as such, not about this box in the questionnaires or whatever, but about the meaning. There is one tamka just above you. So what does it mean for you? all
I'm
these
interested
things?
in the sublime. I'm interested in the sublime. I'm interested in the epiphany that sublimation could give you. I'm interested in the search for divinity within the human body as a product itself. That search is the product. There is no product at the end. You don't come to a point where you go, "Hi God, nice to meet you. Hello, have a nice day." That point perhaps is moot and stupid. But what is interesting is that you think of that destination and you keep moving towards it. Because ultimately, philosophically speaking, what are the only two finalities in human life? There's one finality that you already know, that you are here, you were born on a certain day at a certain time. You were born, you came into being. And then you know for a fact, and that you're never going to witness, is that you're going to die one day. Whether it be through disease, through old age, through accident, through what have you, through some sudden happenstance, you don't know. But those are the only two things you're certain of. But you are certain that you are going to die someday. One certainty has a date marked or a time marked, and the other certainty is a projection in time. I might be dead tomorrow. This might be the last time someone is recording this on video. I don't know that. We really don't know that. You know, so if we are located between these two polar bookends, then the entire narrative, the entire shelf of books between those two bookends is what matters the most. How are you conducting your journey from point A to point Z? And what Lalun does for me is he suggests a way of doing that. He suggests a way through music, through a lifestyle, through a philosophical generosity of the heart, through love, through care for other human beings, through putting non-material interests ahead of material interests. These kinds of things allow me to, live a life that I'm happy with. I'm happy to be alive. I enjoy being alive. I enjoy doing my work. There are moments of sadness, there are moments of frustration, there are moments of anger, irritation, but this bedrock of belief in Lalun's philosophy allows me to negotiate with that, allows me to fight with that and get over my moments of depression, my moments of exhilaration, my moments of greed, lust. All of these things do come into play, and you have to learn how to. It's a personal journey in many ways, and what my journey is may not be the same as yours or anybody else's. In fact, they cannot be the same. They have to be. Each and every one of us is unique, and the journey likewise has to be unique, must be unique. Yeah, that's how I look at it. I don't know any other way of looking at it.
Do you believe in destiny?
No. I think it's random. It's completely random. But if there is a destiny, it's what you shape. You create your own destiny. You choose how you want to live. You don't necessarily control the consequences, but you can choose the way you are going to act. There was this tremendous life experience that Jean-Paul Sartre once talked about, that he went into a bar and befriended a young lady whom he got very attracted to, and he realized that the lady was attracted to him as well, and they talked up, and it was looking like they were both going to have a good night's stay together. And then the lady said, "Yeah, we'll go, but let me just go to the toilet, I'll be right back." She wanted to powder up her nose. And she left, and suddenly Sartre was facing a choice. He could wait, he could leave. He left. Because he said, if I push that towards something concrete, something, that would lead to even if it was a very short-lived relationship, he would have fallen for the narrative. He chose not to fall into the narrative. He chose to redeem himself, step out of it. So those are the kinds of choices that one can make. And these are small ends that we can control, small ends. The big ends we can't probably. Unless you decide to commit suicide, you can't choose your time of death either. If you're not suicidal, then it's not a choice. But it will happen. But before it happens, you have these little choices to make. I mean, my dog daughter, my canine daughter is sleeping here. I can choose to touch her and maybe disturb her sleep, but then I don't. I pull my hand back. I don't want to disturb her sleep. Is that destiny? It probably isn't. But it's a decision that I can take in a moment. In the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, Eliot says something to this effect, that in a moment there will be time, in a moment you can take a decision which a moment will reverse. For a vision and 1,000 revisions, a decision which a moment can reverse. So we live from moment to moment. I don't know if there's any ism behind it or any school of philosophy that I believe in, but this is how I live.
And the man of the hearts lives in between of
Yes.
this moment.
Exactly. The play is structured like that.
Did you find him out sometimes?
You know, Man of the Heart, how did I find it out? I didn't, it found me. Because Shumon Mukhopadhyay, the director, we received a grant from UC Berkeley to do this. And I was supposed to have written the script by the time he arrived. He was very busy with the film, so he was assuming that while he was finishing his work on the film, I would finish my work on the script, and then he would arrive and we'd start working. But I ran into a huge writer's block. I couldn't write. So when he came, all I had to offer him were 3 pages of notes.
This is your fakirs prohibited you to write. The
In hindsight.
Spirit of the
In hindsight, I don't know whether they prohibited or not,
fakirness.
but I was resisting writing, so how could I preordain a written text that we would follow in performance? Rather, the text would follow the performance, and that's precisely what happened. We discovered how we wanted to, how the ideas kind of worked through us to present themselves. That's precisely how it happened. We didn't write it, the performance wrote itself. The text spoke through us, and then all we did was we transcribed it. And at times, on the basis of today's work, we'd make some plans about what we could work with the next day, but tentative, very, very ginger-footedly approached areas, that themes and ideas that we would explore, and something would emerge out of it, and then we would write it down. So that's how the text was made. It wasn't like, the playwright writes the text on his study table, and then the next day the director starts reading it and rehearsing it with the actors. That's not how it happened. So there is this interstitiality there, and the tertiary state of existence, where you're neither primary nor secondary. You're neither here nor there. You're neither. There's an Urdu poem by Kaifi Azmi, which says, "Death, your poetry, you're a poem. मौत तो एक कविता है. कविता से मेरा वादा है कि मिलेगी मुझको. डूबती नब्जों में जब चांद नजर आती है, जर्द सा चेहरा लिए. दिन न भी पानी में हो, रात नहीं उजाले में, जिस्म जब खत्म हो, कविता से मेरा वादा है कि मिलेगी मुझको."
আমার সোনার বাংলা তোমায় ভালোবাসি
লালন ফকির হিন্দু কি জবান লালন বলে আমার আমি না জানি সন্ধান হিন্দু কি জবান বিবিদের নাই মুসলমানি ওইটা নাই যার সেও তো বাউনি প্রচরে ভাই দিব্য জ্ঞানী লালন তেমনি যা দেখা সবই বলে লালন ফকির হিন্দু কি
পাগল পারা হরে নীলু তারা সব লুটে বাইরে নীলু তারা সব লুটে জানায় যারে
The temple of God is said to be in the middle of the earth, but in fact, that temple is at the center of the human body.
and rural cultures resist this way? Can they Can they dissent? Can they stare back at the seat of power? Can they differ, or must they defer? What does one do when the king is the thief himself? 16 pirates. Who are these 16 pirates? To the rural poet, the 16 pirates are as much the 10 ripos and the 6 senses of the human body as they are the agents of the ruling forces.
Mohammad Abdul Wali, member, Asiatic Society, a native Bengali Muslim reporting in the tongue of the Crown. In the districts of the 24 Parganas, Nadia, Joshua and Patna, mendicants is to be seen who are called by different names and whose secular habits, unshaven hair and repulsive manners are as much a curiosity to a stranger as the rigid secrecy they maintain with regard to their tenets and practices is interesting.
Lalu was a witness to the rise of British colonialism. The Permanent Settlement Act, the rise of an English-educated native intelligentsia, the banning of sati, widow remarriage, the Bengal Renaissance, Sepoy Mutiny, and finally, Queen Victoria's takeover of the company's rule. Amidst all this, Lalun composed thousands of songs and is reputed to have had more than 10,000 disciples in his lifetime. In the city of mirrors, you can never see him because you see him in innumerable pieces of broken reflection.
বসত করে আমি তারে
পাঞ্চা করি দেখব তারে পাঞ্চা করি দেখব তারে কেমনে সে গায় যাই রে ও আমি কেমনে সে গায় যাই রে
Flows out of the female body only on a certain day of the menstrual cycle. Instead of consuming himself with desire, the Shabuk will have to consume the elements flowing out of the woman, mixing them with his own. The Guru, Radha, Muhammad, Allah, divinity in its full totality resides in her. The male Shabuk must deploy his entire being in the quest towards the worship of the woman. And this, the woman and the Godhead get connected in an magnificent dance of infinitesimal colors.